Welcome, friends and family, to Blog 14, dated 29th of the 5th, 2022. A little bit of honesty at the very beginning. I've got my appeal finalised, so this is going to be a very short blog today. It wasn't good news. I don't know quite where I stand now. But I've prepared nothing. You'll probably notice that I've commented less and less. Friday was a D-Day situation, and this weekend has been nothing but miserable for me. But I always do something with the news, so just to date stamp something. I haven't been following the news, but there was a shooting in America this week in Texas in a school, primary school, I believe. My heart and thoughts are with those people that were affected. Seriously, something needs to be done about guns in America. At least ban automatic weapons. That's my opinion, and do something about it soon. It's happening far too common. So we'll end the news there. I do know that the war still goes on with Ukraine. My thoughts are still with them. I know that the Russians are pushing hard, and as long as we continue to supply the Ukrainians, their resources will eventually run out. As I think it comes to that comment, we're stronger together. So if other countries are doing exactly the same, Russia won't be able to keep up that with the clasp around their purse strings as well. Okay, so let's get this appeal thing out the way. Basically, what happened was absolutely totally different to what my union rep I thought would happen, where if you do remember, he stated that they needed to do a level playing field and open the appeals process again, and I thought that was weakened my hand. Actually, they didn't need to do that. The person that took my appeal didn't believe that the 2P process was in any way disadvantage to me, so retracted that. Didn't believe, therefore, that if the 2P process was bad in any way, that I needed an apology, so the apology has been retracted. And the only thing that they agreed on was that the 2P process allowed me to keep my title of manager until the harmonisation process, which I knew anyway, and that's why I've still got the word manager in my title, and that when the harmonisation process is finished, I will become an analyst. So basically, I lost everything. My union rep couldn't believe it. I wrote down all the inaccuracies in all of that, because I believe if you get a timeline and you read the evidence, and the evidence is read out of the timeline where something happened much later, but they believe it happened much earlier, they will believe that there's nothing to actually fight for. I believe that's what's happened, because even the director admitted that the 2P process wasn't followed correctly for me, and this person believes it was. Why you would do that unless you had more evidence, I don't know. So I knew that I had to go to the doctors on Friday for a blood check. I notified work immediately that I was very upset about the appeal process and that I didn't want to work that morning and wanted to go to the doctors first because I knew I was having a blood test. I had the blood test and they did my blood check, and my blood pressure check was sky high. Just to give you some background on that, you have a systolic and a dystolic. The bottom figure is the one that you need to be careful of. 120/80, I believe, is a normal person. Mine was 176 over 123. And believe me, that was the second reading. The first reading was over 135. So it was going down. Not good. They immediately asked me to go and see a doctor. The doctor asked me why my blood pressure readings were all over the shop over the last 15, 16 readings. I've told them about the grievance process. She immediately changed the fit note that I'm under, which is, are you fit for work, reduce responsibilities, down to a sick note for a month. This basically means that I now don't need to work while this process continues, because as you know, I've got a tribunal coming up. That's if the courts believe that there is a case, because the appeals person thought there wasn't one. So again, that puts me in doubt. So then what I started to do was look at my LinkedIn account and look at my CV. I updated parts of it, and I noticed that the jobs are just not there. I could, like I say, take what they say and be an analyst. What you have to understand with that is that puts me back 10 years in my career. I even started at a higher position when I joined the probation service 9.5 years ago. So an analyst is basically just somebody who analyzes numbers. They don't do any of the management functions like supplier meetings, change and request. They just basically do spreadsheets and delete duplicates and all that sort of stuff. It's a total disadvantage to me as a career. It's a total disadvantage in regards to training, because I'd have to train up to be a manager again. I'd have to jump through those hoops, do Prince courses and other stuff. And of course it's a disadvantage in regards to my wage, because although I'm not disadvantaged with my wage at the moment, or my wage and terms and conditions copied across, if I want to go up a band, I have to become a senior or a supervisor or something, which means that I'm in the wrong band. So you can imagine right now there's very few jobs out there. I'm scared in regards to what my qualifications are, because most people train you up to do the job for the company you're in. And I'm off work for a month, where I can probably reflect, but I'll be thinking more about what's going on at work. It's a horrible situation. So thank you very much for being with me. I didn't feel like doing a video today, but I always said I'd do something, even if it was a stopgap video. So this is very much a stopgap video while I think about what I might do next week. So please, bear with me with this. Now normally at this stage I'd probably do some shout outs. Believe it or not, there were less comments this week than any other week. That might be a blessing, I don't know. Usually I read out 13, 14 names. There are less than 7. I think there are 7 actually this time. So big shout out to the people that did comment. There was Martroid, Jambon, Down the Rabbit Hole, Milfy Swimbuckle, Colin Jones, Colin Ferguson and Panther. And thank you very much guys for keeping me sane. I wasn't very good this week in regards to commenting back, but for the ones that I didn't comment back on, I'll address that now. So the first one I didn't comment back on was Jambon. So he said, have you ever met anyone famous? If so, who was it? How did you meet them? What were they like? Thanks again. So I had to think about this, because obviously I have met famous people. The one obscure one, which was a pure fluke. I was on my fly drive holiday in California. I was by myself. I decided that I wanted to do more driving, take in the desert, see the mountains. California is one of those weird places where you're the furthest west of the landmass of America, and as you venture east, you go to the lowest point, which is bloody hot, that's Death Valley, and then you're travelling to Bishop and towards Reno, which is the highest point, and you can go snowing. You can go skiing, sorry, because it's snowing. So you could be surfing in the morning along one of the many beaches along California, and then you can travel east, and you could be skiing in the afternoon. It really is a very versatile place. People have their opinions of America and whether you want to live over there or not, but depending on how well you've done in Britain, how much retirement money you've got, how much collateral you've got, there is a versatility to California that gives you that I want to go over there and be over there longer than here. I certainly, the last time I felt as bad as I do today, wanted to emigrate. I'd had enough. I've had enough now. Maybe a new start is good. A new start in this country is not a new start. You know, sometimes you have to think bigger. Anyway, so I was travelling south from San Francisco down I-1, not I-101, so it was the coast road, and I came across the town of Carmel. Means nothing to a lot of people unless you watch the news, but I stopped off at Carmel just because I was a bit thirsty and wanted something to eat. I ended up going to Clint Eastwood's bar. Now, you've got to remember this was the 90s. Clint Eastwood had a bar because he was the mayor of Carmel. And he was at his piano playing. So he does play piano. I went up to him and thanked him for his films. I'm sure he loved that. It's almost like going up to Richard Wilson and saying, I don't believe it. But I did have a 5-minute chat with him. I asked him if there was anything else in the future, you know, from him other than acting. He said there was. I chose a tune. He played a tune. I went to the bar, bought him a drink, and asked it to be delivered over to him. And that was my first meeting and only meeting with Clint Eastwood. What's he like? Well, he's. I don't know how much you can gain from a 5 to 10 minute chance encounter with a celebrity. He was very charming. He was a very polite person. He didn't put up a brick wall. There was no one around him to stop you from approaching him. And in fact, I think all the town folk just think of him as another person who lives down the road at number 26 or something. So, a weird one. But I hope that answers your question, Jam Bomb. Sorry, my phone will also go to sleep, so there might be a little bit of a disjoint here. So other people I didn't answer. Colin Jones. Well, he didn't actually come up with a question. He basically is a great, nice bloke who likes to comment on what he thought of the video, which is very helpful. So he basically went on to say about the discussion last week in regards to if I had more space, would I have the computer equipment or would I use emulation still and so forth. Now, I answered that question, I thought, fully. And reading the question, it said, if you had the space, would you put the equipment out? So I answered it from that point of view. Of course, I'd still use emulation. So Colin goes into why he would use emulation. All of those were valid. Ease of use, flexibility and changing certain things that you couldn't do on original hardware, etc, etc, etc. All valid points. But I have to stress here that when I answer a question, I do try to answer it as the question intended. And there really wasn't a mention of emulation too much. It was more about, would you use original hardware? And it's all about space for me. But of course, I'd use emulation. Thanks very much, Colin. Please keep those comments up. Colin Ferguson has asked a question. He's basically said, what is my... He said, good stuff. I know what you are into your gaming, but are you more into PC gaming? And what is your favourite genre in games? I personally have never owned or played any PC games. just the old C64 and Amiga 600. All the best. Yes, it's a difficult one to answer really, because my computing goes back to the days when I was at school and we had Commodore PETs, and so therefore I've seen computers go from the ZX80 all the way up to now. And I will always state that you look at things with rose-tinted glasses, but you'll always have a fun engineer. And mine would always be around the Commodore 64 and my transition into the Amiga, even though the biggest outlet and the biggest period of my time has now been the PC. And that's because work comes into play. Consoles are just for games. PCs are a little bit more versatile. I don't think you'll ever beat a mouse keyboard combination. I know that they really try with a handheld, but this is where first person shooters on consoles didn't work for me, because I had trouble looking around and aiming while strafing forward with the other controller, even though the fire triggers are directly underneath you. So I would tend to find that everybody would shoot me in the head and I would be lucky to shoot their arm. It's just one of those things where when I was playing Doom and Quake and those things on the PC, I was able to move and flank and strafe very easily. It gets harder now, but there is a line of thought on that, saying that games are now too easy, and it's because people put things like X-ray vision into your first-person shooters and turning a lot of things down and leading you to where you need to go, because too many people complained that the maps were so large you got lost on what you needed to do next. No, that's us as gamers. It needs to be hard. You know, I don't need a line that says follow the yellow brick road to get to here. Those games annoy me. But the question was about Genere and its C64 and Amiga, and I was going to talk about this sort of later on in my blogs. But I had my Commodore 64 for about 5 years, and I had my Amiga for around about the same amount of time. So 5 or 6 years is a long period of time, and when you're in your youth, you tend to find that time, I don't know what it is, but I just felt a year felt like a year. Now a year feels like half a year, and I don't know if that's because of an age thing. But I just felt I had so much time, and so every game I was able to spend more time with. I don't know why I can't spend more time with it now. It's life things. So PC games opened up a multitude of things for me. Real-time strategy games, open world, larger games. I don't know. I moved sort of away from arcade-ish type games with a PC into a more verbose area of Geneers, but I kept my love and fun of quick 10-minute mashups by using MAME. So emulation became a thing, and so I was able to keep with the ties. So the PC's been a magic tool for me. I don't know if that's answered your question, because I rambled on a little bit towards the end there, but I hope it did. And Colin, thank you very much for your question. And then Panther. So he said, I know there are many reasons, but what do you think was a deciding factor in the decline of video game arcades? Yes, it's not one small thing. Just to give you a bit of knowledge, in my hometown, they've just built onto the major precinct area which is shops, and they've now built a cinema there with restaurants, and they cordoned off an arcade section where there will be arcade games. Now, whether those are going to be retro or not, I don't know. And then there are retro arcade games around the country that Mainmeister and so forth has all talked about. So what was the deciding factor? I think as our technology grew and the grounds between what, the graphic fidelity of an arcade game to what you could do at home shrank. You were able to take something home. Taking something home then meant you could bring mates home and try and beat those high scores in an environment that wasn't full of strangers and people around. And of course, you could buy your beer or drink or whatever, or food, and have that around you, making it a much more comfortable experience. And the games were virtually identical. Saying that, there's nothing that beats sitting in front of a cabinet, an arcade cab, putting your money in and playing it. I just think that we're lazy. We're lazy as we have a lazy trait in us. Is probably the best way, and we like our home comforts. It's why the pandemic has made us realize now that the cinema might not be the best place now to watch a film. TVs are now so large, they're so crystal clear. You can now sit people in front of your sofa and watch the film streamed, watch it on physical media. What's the point in going to the cinema, sitting next to somebody who smells and basically is munching popcorn all the way through the film? We're going to miss those days if that continues. I miss the arcades. There's no real arcade around me until this new complex opens, so I will be using it. I will miss going to the cinema if that occurs, if cinemas continue to decrease. Seeing something on a big screen with those massive speakers, and in an environment where other people are also enjoying it with you. I think that's the thing. It's almost like when your mum said go out and play, because they knew that you needed to commune with other people, because that's life. If you do that, you segregate yourself, you become a lonely person. Does that answer your question, Panther? I'm not sure, but it's a number of things. Money has been an aspect of it, the cost of making them, the fact that our wages are becoming smaller, to be able to put the joy of a coin in and play an arcade game. We can't really afford that anymore. It's much better to save up and buy it for home use, where you can play it to your heart's content. MAME might have had a small dent in it, but I don't see that. MAME has been a massive thing, and I think it's only told our youngsters what we did as kids, but on a real machine. So it's more to do with technology, and more to do with money, and more to do with our laziness that's caused the arcades to diminish. And I believe that was the last one of my comments there. So, like I say, much smaller. Normally I'd go through what I've bought this week. I can do that. This week there was more things that come because of pre-orders. Not much to comment on. They're all steel books. The first one is The Green Knight. I know very little about this. It's just that the story is more about Arthurian legend, which I'm very much into. Ever since Defender of the Crown and watching Robin Hood and all of that. And the next one was the Steel Book of Hacksaw Ridge. I tend to find that war films really give my surround sound a big kick in. So, and Hacksaw Ridge isn't a bad film. There are better, but it's a good film. And then I promised last week something for Rabbit. Now Rabbit, he does lovely videos. He's done a recent one about Blade Runner, but I'll let you go and search for that because it's an interesting watch. But he did one a couple of weeks ago about Robin Hood, and he said he'd actually come over to England and he'd come to Glastonbury and visited a lot of things that had signs up about Arthurian Britain, and whether Robin Hood is a myth or a tale, and whether there was a King Arthur and all of that sort of stuff. And he'd brought some trinkets home with him, and they were written in the English language of the time, in the 12th or 13th century. And I thought to myself, I'm a big filmy. What Robin Hood films have I got? And I've got a couple. But there was one big, massive, gaping hole Robin Hood film that I hadn't got, and that was the Ridley Scott Robin Hood film. Believe it or not, it slipped through my fingers and I hadn't bought it. So, what did I go and do? I bought the biggest bleed box version of Robin Hood that you could possibly find. Believe it or not, at a very cheap price. This was on eBay. It is from Germany, which is why it's got the 12 certificate. And it was £22, including postage. And I believe this was a £60 box set when it came out. You can see it's the Robin Hood Russell Crowe. It's got the Steelbook in there, so remember my Steelbook love. It's got some sort of notebook in it and a pendant of a type. It's got a pack of cards with drawings of the actors in them, so not photos, some art cards, and I'm not sure of the rest. I haven't opened it, as you can see, and it's all in German, so I'm not particularly going to be able to say too much about it. The film-wise, though, it wasn't my favourite Ridley Scott film. I thought it was a pretty good take, much better than Kevin Costner's Robin Hood. And to be quite honest, Kevin Costner's Robin Hood is not a bad film, but I'd rather watch Men in Tights by Mel Brooks. So maybe that tells you a little bit about that. But to me, Robin Hood was all of the 30s and 40s Robin Hood, you know. So I'm very much a swashbuckler. 40s, 30s, 50s Robin Hood. So even the TV series during the 80s and 90s that was on ITV was more about clans and things. That actually made me smile and think. So thanks very much, actually, because I haven't smiled for about 3 days. What else have I watched this week? I watched Star Trek. That continues to infuriate and make me smile in regards to the fact that I think it is the closest you're going to get to a Star Trek. I'm looking forward to people watching it in England on Prime. I'm using a VPN so that I can have it streamed. But I don't think there's too much illegality in that. It's not like I'm downloading a version of it. I'm watching it streamed through a VPN. And then I watched Obi-Wan. And again, there are 2 episodes out there. I'm in 2 minds about prequels. This one is a prequel. It sets off from the end of the 3rd film before the events of the 4th film, which is, as we know, the first Star Wars film. And Leia and Luke Skywalker are around about 10 years old. It's a retrocon thing, and you have to understand, do you just take it in as a story, or does this destroy what you already know? Some people look at this far too seriously. Please look at it as a story. From a story point of view, there was enough action to keep me entertained. There was enough in there that didn't destroy history. Take it like this. This is not. It's a spoiler and a non-spoiler. I've just told you that Leia is 10 years old. Leia has meets Obi-Wan Kenobi in these 2 episodes. Duh, right? Otherwise, why do I know she's there, right? But in the film, she acted like she'd never met him. Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. I'm sure you can remember it with all the droids. And then at the end, Obi-Wan dies. This is a 1977 film. I don't think there's any spoilers. And what you have to understand from that point of view is she still never met him in the 4th film. So meeting him in this TV series is neither here nor there. Do you see what I'm getting at? Because he could do a mind wipe. He's known as Ben in this, not Obi-Wan. Even Luke said, oh Ben, he's Obi-Wan, is he? You know, it's like that. So it's an entertaining piece of fluff, and I was entertained by it, and it didn't offend me. That's the best word. Other videos I watched, thanks very much, Colin, for your Puzzle Bobble video. I'd destroy you. Sorry, I'm fantastic at Puzzle Bobble. By the way, there's an exploit on level 9. If that helps you, look it up. I'm only joking, Colin. I do like your videos. Haven't seen much from Panther. I'm looking forward to a new one from him, probably today. Like I say, do go and see Down the Rabbit Hole. And I believe Steve is 8-Bit Steve, who watches this channel, has started to play some games. I'm looking forward to definitely watching that. And that brings this to a conclusion. Sorry it's shorter, sorry it's down. I don't know where I'm at. I really don't. And this only increases my stress. I still can't sleep. And I don't know how to explain it to my mother. Money's going to become very tight very quickly. But until next week, and please do comment. I need it probably more than ever. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.